In just the last year and a half or so, the really extraordinary thing has been the absolute explosion in the number of so-called patriot groups or militia groups. These are groups that basically see the government, the federal government, as the primary enemy out there. And typically they share a kind of conspiracy theory about the government. They believe that the government is involved in a plot to confiscate all weapons from all Americans, to impose martial law in the United States, very likely with the help of foreign troops, probably European troops, to throw all Americans who resist into concentration camps, which have been secretly built by the government, and ultimately to force the United States into a kind of socialistic, one world government or new world order, as they say. I mean, the number of hate groups in the United States has risen by about 55% from the year 2000. By our count in 2000, there were 602 of those groups. In 2009, the latest count we did, that number had risen to 932 groups. So there was a long, steady rise of hate groups over the last decade. In the case of so-called patriot groups, the anti-government groups, there have been very few of them. Of course, we had a major patriot movement and militia movement in the 1990s, but it had very largely faded away by the end of the 90s. So after 2000, and really right until 2008, there were 100, 130, 140 of these groups, but they were not very active at all. Between 2008, when Obama was elected, and the next year, 2009, the number of patriot groups went up by 244%. To more than 500 groups. So the growth there was absolutely enormous, and we expect to see more of that growth in the patriot groups next year as well. I think there are a number of reasons for that. We have seen increasingly over the last really 10 years the growth in hate groups, quite apart from patriot groups, and this, I think, has been driven almost entirely by the group's exploitation of the issue of illegal immigration. It's been remarkable to see how Klan groups and neo-Nazi groups, which normally spend their time complaining about the evils of the Jews, of black people, of gay people, and so on, have for 10 years now been focused almost exclusively on the purported danger of illegal immigrants. And of course, from the point of view of these groups, it's a natural target because, after all, we are not talking about French or German or Irish immigrants. We're talking about immigrants with brown skin from Mexico and from Central America. But I think really you have to look at it in a bigger way. What is really going on in this country is the racial demographics of the population are changing, and they are changing radically. The American Census Bureau has predicted that by the year 2050, whites will lose their majority in the United States. They will fall to under 50% of the population. And, this is a country that has, for its entire history, been dominated by whites, by Christian whites. So that is a very big change, and that is also kind of apotheosized in the person of Barack Obama, this black man with his black wife and his black children, in the White House. For many, many thousands of Americans, if not millions, that has made them incredibly uncomfortable, uptight. They feel that, their country has been stolen from them. This is not the country my Christian white forefathers built, and so on. Additionally, starting in October of 2008, of course, we had the subprime mortgage collapse, and the economy has been hellish ever since then. And typically in these situations, they look for explanations, as anyone would. Well, it's one thing to have a very complex explanation of, look, this is all about the global economy and the way the world is changing and so on. It is much easier for many people to say it must be because of the Jews or the Mexicans who moved in or the homosexuals who are taking over our schools and so on. And I would say that the third major factor has been the way that demonizing propaganda and false conspiracy theories have been pushed into the mainstream of American political thought. Look, I mean, the truth is Americans are very conspiracy-oriented anyway, far more than most Europeans. But the truth is that in the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen an enormous number of mainstream politicians. I'm talking about governors of states. I'm talking especially about congressmen, as well as very well-known media commentators with audiences in the millions, people like Glenn Beck of Fox News, who have helped to bring completely false theories and propaganda into the mainstream. So I'm talking, for instance, about Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann, a Republican from Minnesota, who has suggested that Obama is secretly building political re-education camps, to turn all of our children into little Marxist robots, presumably. I'm talking about another congressman, Spencer Baucus, from here in Alabama, who claims, there are 17 secret communists in the American Congress plotting to do much harm to all the rest of us. I'm talking about people like Lou Dobbs, who was a very important figure on CNN, the cable news station, who made claims that Mexico had a secret plot, the so-called Plan de Aztlán, or the Reconquista, to invade and reconquer the American Southwest, to take back the 7 states of the Southwest, which were once a part of Mexico. So, it is one thing when you have some nut with a web page making these kinds of claims about secret concentration camps and Mexican plans for invasion and all the rest of it, but it's quite another when you have these kind of authority figures on national television making these statements. The sad reality is that millions and millions of Americans actually believe these fairy tales, and as a result, whole groups of people are demonized. So we see this rise in groups, and at the same time, an accompanying rise in political crimes and hate crimes directed against Latinos, against gay people, and now most recently, of course, against Muslims. The reality is that the majority of hate crimes, crimes that are motivated by hatred against certain races or religions or ethnicities or sexual orientation and so on, the vast majority of these crimes are committed by individuals who have no affiliation with any group. Certainly the hate groups, the actual organized Klan and neo-Nazi groups and so on, are responsible for a lot of violence. But it is a very small portion of the hate crime that we see in general across the country. Studies have shown very clearly it's less than 5% of that crime. But the hate groups play an extremely important part in making this crime happen, in the sense that they are giving the justification for it, right? They are pumping out this propaganda that people believe is true. Or at least some people. So, while it may seem that very few people are going to believe that the troubles of America are all because of Jewish bankers, say, there are some people who actually say, yeah, that makes sense. And some small number of those people, whether they are part of any group or not, will go out and act on it. And so you end up with someone like the man who murdered a guard at the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. The United States government has been collecting figures on hate crimes since 1992. And in fact, we have a run of data from 1992 to 2008. And basically what that data shows is that the hate crimes they're reporting amount to a total of between about 6,000 and about 10,000 hate crimes a year, which, is a significant number of crimes, but we are a country of 308 million people. So really, that is a very tiny sliver. But the reality is, people in my business, people who are criminologists, have always known that those numbers are low. We did not know how low, however, until a recent study came out from the Department of Justice, which found that the real level of hate crime in America was about 191,000 incidents a year. That is 20 to 30 times higher than what the official statistics show. The reason for that, in large part, is because more than half of hate crimes are never reported to police. And of those that are reported to police, a great many are erroneously classified as non-hate crimes. But when this very serious study was done that looked at about 3.5 years of data, it became very clear that, in fact, this really is a major social problem in this country, just as it is in many Western European countries.